binding, there's low fluorescence polarization, and so it's a really nice assay. And we were lucky that it turned out that this site was accessible. That's the site that was taking out of the active site. We did not have a structure of OGT when we did that. Now, we found these very poor hits. They had terrible IC50s, they were absolutely awful. But we found a set of them that had this conserved feature, which is a quinolinone 6-sulfonamide, and I thought that was kind of striking. And so we bought pretty much all of the compounds we could find that had that feature in it. Decided to move to Harvard, so I had extra money for a startup that I spent on what might otherwise seem like a waste of time. But because of that, we were able to get some other SARs. So we found that we had a phenylglycine in the 2 positions. That was sort of overrepresented in all of the good hits. And we found some better compounds. And then we began to collaborate with Craig Thomas and his group, Jamie Intuvo and Patrick Morris notably, and made other compounds. And they defined the stereochemistry around this bond as R in the preferred conformer. And we also found a compound that was reasonable. It was 3 micromolar in vitro, and it showed some activity in cells. We called it OSMI1 for OGT small molecule 1. And so it doesn't give it over information in cells. This is a Western blot. These are measurable by cell and cell line. And we're looking at 50 micromolar compound in 24 hours. And you can see that you get, and this is the Locarno inhibitor, and you get very good knockdown of global methylation. Now, I'm putting this up because it looks good. Not all cell lines give you such good results. And so there were plenty of reasons why we wanted to get a more potent compound. And there were also reasons why we'd like to get around away from some of the features in this molecule to get inhibitors that could be used potentially in animals. And so we began to make more things with the goal of trying to get things that are more soluble so that we can crystallize them. And so we now have several crystal structures of co-complexes. And I'm putting this up. I'm going to show you a little movie in a minute, but I want to point out a couple of things. This quinolinone 6-sulfonamide is an almost perfect uridine mimic. So if you trace the uracil ring right here, and it's the bond to the ribose sugar, you can see that the overlap here is remarkable. You have the two oxygens here and the nitrogens here are almost on top of each other, and then it diverges, and they go off sort of in different directions. But then this sulfonamide oxygen and this ribose hydroxyl are positioned to make contact to the same groups. And so we have what I think is a very good uridine mimic. And then you can also see that as this molecule progresses further, that you have actually a set of contacts where this acid overlaps reasonably well with the phosphate. Now, this is a big molecule. It does get into cells, the protected version, the protected version does, but it would be nice if it was smaller. But in looking at it, one of the reasons it's big is that it fills this part of the active site really well. So this part is jammed in, even though like the uridine, and then on top of it, this part of the molecule, which we couldn't figure out what it's doing for the longest time, seems to be sort of lying on it the way part of the peptide substrate would, and then comes in under this lip. And so, I don't know how much smaller we can make it, but we did manage to find something which had good sort of electronic complementarity and good shape complementarity. And so if you play a movie, and this just shows you the sort of electron density envelope. Again, it's a pretty nice structure. But so you can see these are a series of hydrogen bonds that are identical in the uracil. So these are sort of peptide backbone, and then there's a side chain hydrogen bond. There's a stacking interaction, which this also picks up on. This is the contact to the ribose hydroxyl. So there's a whole set of interactions, and then over here, that carboxyl group is making a set of interactions very similar to what the phosphate does. And so we have a really nice inhibitor at this point, and we have the information that we need to make it better, and the hope is going to be that we can get things which are going to be suitable to take into animals with the help of hypoxic inserts. So that's I'm pretty happy about. But in the remaining time, I want to go back to OGT function, because one of the things about this enzyme is it's essential. So there's the question of what will happen if you actually inhibit it, and it probably depends on how much you inhibit it. And I don't think people know the answer. And so find out. But in OGT, the story got a little bit more complicated in 2011. It's already complicated enough. Then a couple of papers came out that were pretty remarkable. This paper here from Lynn Ship-Her's group proposed that OGT was somehow affecting cleavage of a protein called HPF1. Now, OGT was known as a glycosyltransferase, and I think most people, when those papers came out, were very surprised when it was proposed that it was actually acting as a protease. Our structure was already out, and we kind of were like, how is it doing that? I don't see where it's doing that. And so, of course, that made it an interesting thing to study, and so we began to collaborate with Lynn Ship-Her, and I'll tell you what we learned. So HPF1 is an essential transcriptional coactivator, like OGT is essential in mammals, and it's found in all metazoans, so it's a hallmark of multicellularity, just like OGT is. And it interacts with a whole bunch of things. Enzymes involved in collagen modification, enzymes involved in transcription, and so on. And what people knew about it from early days of finding it, and I should say that the name post-cell factor comes because it was discovered in the context of viral infection as being really important for herpes virus exit from malignancy. And so, they knew that in the context of the study of eukaryotes that it needed to be cleaved in order to have its full repertoire of functions, otherwise you get cell cycle defects. And so the question was, what is doing the cleavage? And so what people knew was that there were these 6 centrally located repeats right in the middle of HPF1. It's a big protein, has about 2,000 amino acids, and then right in the middle there are these long repeats, which are almost identical. This is the sequence of leafy tube, but they look very similar. And these repeats had two distinct regions. One of them was called the cleavage region, and that was here. And it was proposed, based on studies people had done, isolating HPF1 fragments from cells, that cleavage occurs between the glutamate and the threonine. Okay, so they were doing enzyme degradation on isolated C-terminal fragments. And then there's a threonine-rich region, which seemed to be also important, and which occurred from some of the studies proposed was important in binding to OGT. And so it was a very long study. And so Richard had seen that it was necessary for HPF1 cleavage. What he didn't know was whether or not it was actually directly promoting the cleavage, or whether it was, say, glycosylated somewhere else in the molecule, and it was known to do a lot of tier 3 glycosylation, and then somehow causing something to happen to the protein which might lead to autoproteolysis, so massive conformational change, which there are other examples of that kind of phenomenon. And so we thought, well, okay, in order to sort of to work on this, what we really needed a substrate that doesn't have any tier 3 glycosides. And so we made a 3-repeat fragment of HPF1, and we found that it was expressed very well, and that it did not appear to be glycosylated, or at least not substantially. And we found that you only saw cleavage, and so this is the gel that we're looking, there's a set of cleavage fragments, so you have 3 repeats, and so you have a set of bands when you get cleavage. It only gets cleaved when you have UDP-gluconate present. If you have UDP, nothing happens. If you have the 5-S-gluconate molecule, nothing happens. So the 5-S-gluconate, we know, looks just like UDP-gluconate, but it's not as reactive, and so that suggested that you needed a reactive form of UDP-gluconate for this to occur. It seems to need the active site machinery, because if you inhibit the enzyme with a covalent inhibitor that targets 2 residues in the active site, you lose cleavage, and if you make mucus, you lose cleavage. And so it was curious that you needed UDP-gluconate, and but that there was no gluconate found in the starting material for products. So Rich both before and with us did some experiments to identify this, the role of this glutamate residue, and found that you could not mutate it to anything and get cleavage. It's absolutely required. It's the only residue that's absolutely required here for function. But if you do change some of the threonines here, change multiple threonines, you can abolish cleavage completely. And so those regions are critical. And so we began to study the cleavage fragments of our small repeats, and we found that cleavage actually occurs, and this is a sort of big mechanistic breakthrough, where the cleavage does not occur here between the threonine and the glutamate. It actually occurs between the cysteine and the glutamate. And what happens, and when cleavage occurs, you form the close N-terminal fragment, and then a C-terminal fragment which has a pyroglutamate at the N-terminus. And so in this molecule, you have a cyclization occurring between this nitrogen and this carbonyl right there. And so the reason the cleavage site was misidentified, I think, initially is that these would not be visible to enzyme degradation, as it were. And so they were detecting some fragments that had where that had been lost in cells, had been processed off. And there are enzymes that will process those off. So this was a mechanistic clue, because if you're forming a pyroglutamate, and it's fast at least, then it implies glutamate glycine activation. So given that time, it can happen spontaneously, but this was happening relatively quickly. And so how could you activate the side chain? So we'll get to that, but I wanted to tell you that one of the things that we thought was that if we get a structure of this down to OGT, it might give us more mechanistic clues, but it will also give us maybe the first view of how peptides or proteins can bind into the OGT GTR domain, because that's where it was proposed to bind. And so we got the structure, and you can see here the UDP by this glutamate, and then this long HCF1 peptide binding over the sugar and then extending up into the lumen of the GTRs. And so it's a pretty nice structure. And it tells us how the substrate binds to OGT. So the binding, really, a lot of these interactions that anchor into the GTRs involve these bidentate hydrogen bonds from asparagines, and so they interact with the backbone. So you can see one after another these asparagines making contact to the amide backbone and positioning this molecule in the lumen of the GTRs, which is pretty neat. That kind of binding mode has been observed before among other things, a protein called alpha importer. And in the GTR structure that was published, it was proposed that this binding motif might play a role, and as you can see, it does. And then, of course, you have some contacts to these threonine hydroxyls that are important. And so what we also know now, because this is not a glycosylation substrate, it was suggested that a lot of glycosylation substrates could bind like that, and what we know from experiments we've done recently is that, in fact, these contacts are important for a huge number of cellular substrates as well. So the other thing that this structure showed is that the cleavage region binds pretty much just like a glycosylation substrate in the active site. So this is a glutamine residue instead of a glutamate, and it's flying directly over the sugar. And if you look at the sort of the CK2 peptide that we previously crystallized, it is dead on identical in the active site. This is the beta carbon of the alanine and of this glutamine are on top of each other, and so that then suggested that the glutamate was probably reacting with the sugar. And to test if that was a kind of physiologically relevant structure, we thought, well, if you convert this to a serine, then we're going to be able to convert this cleavage substrate, here, the glutamate cleave, into a glycosylation substrate. And so if you take the exact same peptide motif, but with one change, the glutamate here, you get cleavage, the serine here, you get no cleavage. The reverse is true if you look at glycosylation, where this serine now gets glycosylated. So now we have a substrate where we can compare different outcomes. Tier 3 glycosylation, glutamate glycosylation, and other forms of glycosylation, I'll tell you about. So it's a pretty nice model system. But I was interested in the fact that changing one side chain changes the chemistry, because when you think about it, cleaving an amide backbone and doing a sort of a glycosylation reaction and coming up with a glycosylated serine are pretty different. So the hypothesis, of course, was that OGT affects cleavage by glycosylating on glutamate, and we thought we had several lines of evidence, including the structural stuff, the fact that you need to get activation, and the fact that you must have a reactive form of UDP-glutamate providing circumstantial evidence for this, but it's always best if you can actually see an intermediate. And so we went looking for the intermediate, but in order to do that, we had to identify the smallest possible substrate that would still be cleaved. And so this substrate we've been working with was 151 residues, and we found that you could actually get cleavage with just a 31 residue substrate, which surprised us. It took us a little bit longer than it should have, because we're trying to take some long, I guess. So what that means then is you can look at the cleavage by mass spec, and that's very nice. You can get detailed information. So this is the starting material, and those are the C and N terminal fragments. And so that obviously doesn't tell us anything new. But what we noticed was that there were two. There are actually a couple of little blips, from your two of them here, that you see. If you load those that I boxed in, they're both glycopeptides. If you get a mass, they both have the mass of the glycopeptide. But the times the genetics of formation are very different. One forms fast and then disappears in the course of the reaction, and the other forms much more slowly, and anything with this modification on it never gets cleaved. So that suggests that one was intermediate and the other was a byproduct. So if you think about it, you could get glycosylation elsewhere. We're doing these experiments under single turnover conditions, high enzyme, high substrate, and so there's a hydroxyl right next to the glutamate. It wouldn't be hard to imagine that you could get a little bit of glycosylation there. It's all very small units. And we wanted to get rid of that as a initial analysis, and we thought maybe we could prevent the byproduct formation with this mutant. We have this aspartate mutant here, which we propose plays a role with, plays a role with glycosylation on threonine. We propose to connect it over how it does that. It involves acting as a terminal acceptor for the proton. And so this just shows, well, it's on this, that the wild-type enzyme can be glycosylated in this peptide fragment, but if you mutate it to asparaginine, you don't see any more glycosylation. But if you look at cleavage, if anything, it looks a bit better if you're cleaving. And so there is a difference in what these two residues, how this behaves with respect to these two different reactions. And maybe it's because in the case of the glutamate nucleophile, you don't really need to have something to shuttle the proton out of the active site. You have to establish that, but it's a possible explanation. So when we tested this to look at cleavage, we found that we did not see the byproduct. So here you can see a fair amount of it, and here there's virtually none. And it also appeared that this was a bit faster because we don't see any starting material remaining, but the time point was quite long. So we looked at a much shorter time point, and when we did that, we found that even in 3 minutes we were seeing a fair amount of cleavage. Most of the starting material was greatly reduced, certainly not quite gone, but we saw a huge accumulation of these two intermediates. One of them is the glutamate plus peptide peak. The other one is starting material which has lost water, or at least that's what the mass corresponds to. And so we have these two intermediates accumulating in the reaction, and we analyzed them, and the MSMS agitation showed that the dehydration was localized right to actually this glutamate, and so the structure of that intermediate is an internal pyroglutamate, and of course you make the internal pyroglutamate, you have something which is way more susceptible to cleavage, to hydrolysis. The first intermediate is a glutamate and glycopeptide. We had to go and get some Dr. Gruber so that we could get ECG data in order to be able to see fragments that retain the sugar, but we did that, and it localizes to that position. And so that is a glutamate and glycopeptide. We're able to isolate that glycopeptide. We have to do that to go up to glucose, so it's stable enough that you can isolate it transported further. So that was nice. And so the mechanism of ACS on cleavage is that you get an initial attack by this glutamate. It forms the glycosylglutamate intermediate. That almost immediately or very rapidly forms the internal pyroglutamate, and that then hydrolyzes. And so this is simply just much more reactive. This is a better leaving group. This is more molecular, so it's just good reaction. And we think that both of these steps happen on the enzyme. When the intermediate finally dissociates, it undergoes spontaneous cleavage. And we think that because if you isolate this intermediate, it will convert to internal pyroglutamate, but then you can come along. And so the point that you might ask is why do the intermediates accumulate more in the case of the mutants? So I should mention that we see both of the intermediates in the wild-type enzyme. They're just really small, and they would have been too small to actually analyze the structures of that step. But they're both there. And so they're building up in the case of the G554N mutants. And so this is just an ignore the barriers here, particularly in this region. All we're really trying to illustrate is what we know happens is that the very first step of this reaction occurs much faster. And so somehow the barrier to glycosylation has gone way down. It's a 100-fold faster reaction in the case of the G554 mutants. And because this final barrier to get cleavage is high, is rate determinant, these accumulate. Whereas they only accumulate a little bit in the beginning, so this is also pretty high. So you get very small amounts of that. So you speed it up, you get a lot of intermediates, and that was really the key to figuring out what the mechanism was. So now this is why it's the first step faster. And we think probably it has something to do with electrostatic repulsion. This has to attack that atomeric carbon. In order to do that, it has to bend around and get past G554. So this is one side chain. It comes within about 4 angstroms or so, and so obviously in an active site, that would be a lot of electrostatic repulsion. So it's not that favorable, and so it's slow. What we think, and so one of the things we think you need the T-rich region for is so that it stays down long enough that you can get this unfavorable reaction to occur. And so that was, it has been a nice study, and some of the findings I think will be useful for trying to see if we can separate biochemical functions so as to see a cell to ask the question, what is the most important to the extent that that can be narrowed down function cells. And so I will very briefly just mention that one of the things that this study made us wonder about was whether or not you can glycosylate on aspartate. So we know that if you glycosylate the same model peptide on, if you change the thing from glutamate to aspartate, it will not cleave. But in looking at the structure, it seems that if you had a shorter side chain, it wouldn't have any problem glycosylating it, might even be better. And so we actually investigated that using this model peptide and found that it actually does glycosylate on aspartate. When it does that, you actually form, if you look at the end of the reaction, a product which is isomeric with the starting material. And so here's the starting material, here's the product that eventually forms in the reaction, and it forms, based on the characteristic what the medium where I expect the resistance, it forms a succinate intermediate. So it forms a different type of intermediate. This is H now from the ring, and we know that there's a dehydrated intermediate, and we've done a lot of studies to establish pH with a succinate, and if you form a succinate, you can hydrolyze by water attacking this position or at this position. The position to give you this molecule, the isoaspartate, is favored by sort of 3 to 5 to 1. And so you will go to isoaspartate. Whatever starting material is regenerated can enter the cycle again, and as long as those you can't glycosylate very well on aspartate, you eventually pile that up. So that's what was happening there. And so for examination on these different side chains leads to really different outcomes. So the chemistry of this enzyme is pretty remarkable. These should be nowhere physiologically relevant. This is a reasonably fast reaction. This is a pretty slow reaction. This one, at least on this substrate, is considerably faster than the cleavage reaction, but a few fold slower than glycosylation of furin 3 and so that suggests that it could actually happen in cells. And it turns out that isoaspartyl proteins do form in cells. They are generally thought to be due to a non-enzymatic process, and they're associated with protein aging. And cells contain a repair enzyme called protein isoaspartyl methyltransferase, whose function seems to be to repair the damage, because when you isomerize to isoaspartate, you have a fold of the protein. And so the cell repairs the damage using chemistry pretty similar. So you activate this acid, and you form a succinate intermediate, and then you do the cycle all over again. And even though it still favors the isoaspartic acid protein, you just keep on driving it this way until you repair enough of the damage. And so this enzyme selectively reacts with isoaspartyl. And so what that was interesting to us because it makes us wonder a couple of things. One is whether or not some of the enzymatic, whether some of the isoaspartyl proteins that you find in cells are due to enzyme catalyzed reactions. OGC can do it. It's not yet known whether it does do it, but we're going to look for it. But it is known in part to ADP ribosyl transferase, they naturally glycosylate on aspartate and on glutamate. And so the modifications that people detect due to glycosylation on those resins are going to be the ones that are stable, but there may be a whole bunch of other ones that lead to things like cleavage or isomerization. And so I think it would be useful to go look for that. Whether or not these are all sort of side reactions or whether some of them are actually used in biological processes, potentially, so I think we've learned a lot about the chemistry of this remarkable enzyme, and other people are learning a lot about the biology that it does, and hopefully at some point we will converge in the middle. And so I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions, and one of them is the question of why is it that OTC is essential in animals? I think it's been clear to a lot of people for a long time that it's a really important enzyme. Nobody really knows why. Is it because it does a whole bunch of other things? Is it because it cleaves HbF1, which is itself essential? Is it because some of the aggregate constellations of serine and threonine are so important to signaling pathways that you really can't survive that kind of dysfunction for very long? Is it because it also may be a scaffolding protein found in a lot of long-range complexes? So those are all things that need to be addressed. And when we know about how the enzyme behaves and how it interacts with its partners and what its chemistry is, better of a position I think at the end to actually try and dissect some of those functions. And so one of the things that needs to be done in order to do that is to replace OTC with various cells. And so OTC is essential. You can knock it out of embryonic fibroblasts, such as that, but the cells then die. And so you have to actually be able to come up with a strategy where you can robustly replace OTC with other variants, and I guess look at the ones that survive. So I think essential, I should clarify that I think essential in animals. Okay, so I haven't went all the way to the side. I want to thank my group and a whole bunch of other people. I won't take too long except to say that anytime someone stands up here, it's because of the efforts of a huge number of people and resources. And I was very fortunate to have some wonderful students. Ben Rhodes started this project, but I joined the next, had just a whole string of fabulous students. Mike Lazarus did all of the structural work. He was initially helped by Peter Hughes in the PCMG department at Harvard, but he became he's now a structural biologist at Mount Sinai as an assistant professor, and he's just an incredible structural biologist. Xiaoyang Zhang is now at the University of Wisconsin. Did a lot of the mechanistic work on the early HbF1 cleavage things. And John Van Esco then did the kind of mechanistic work where we were able to see the intermediates, and so he did a really beautiful mechanistic entomology, which I'm very happy about. And I have a whole bunch of new students coming along who I think are doing wonderful things. I want to mention Sarah Martin right now because she actually made the inhibitor that we crystallized, and she has been working closely with Craig Thomas' team, with David Hill and Patrick Morris, and so they have been functioning really well as kind of a mini group, which these are not the easiest molecules to make, and it's going great. And so I'm very grateful to them for their efforts, and I think that we really eventually get into animals, as I said. There were a whole bunch of other people who have been helpful along the way. I can't forget Lynn Shapiro, who did spectacular work on HbF1 cleavage, and being willing to collaborate to work out the mechanism. And of course, David Bocalvo, who is at Craig University, who has supplied us with mechanisms with colleagues. And of course, the NIH. None of this would be possible without funding, and so I'm all grateful to get funded. And I'm really happy that I can get funded for it. If you think of pickup, this happens. So thank you. Thank you for your attention. Really nice talk. Was very interesting. I was wondering if you were able to figure out if OTC will prefer to be protease or directly transferase in vitro. If you give them, if you give it a CK2 peptide and HC1 peptide, will it prefer to be protease or directly transferase? We haven't done, we talked about doing a direct competition at the same time, but we haven't done it. I think the rate of glycosylation depends very much on what the substrate is. So I think for some substitute product limited, if you do a direct comparison of the glycosyl transfer reaction and the protease reaction with that model, that's substrate, glycosylation still wins. But you slow down the glycosylation compared to the CK2. People have commented on the flow test of HbF1, but also noted that not really a protease that has nothing happening at that. You need to use the time field to go which is 24 hours, 20 hours. So when that makes it not really clear, why do you need to use it? Why do you use it? We use things that have one question that's not a lot of questions about that. Yeah, I don't have any questions about the protease disease. So just have a sequence to change one of the options and to capture. We're hoping to be able to do that the other way, and it's a lot better just to get real targets pretty much fun. of natural sciences, but also the context of university. So, as I mentioned before, another impact of the microbiota for sure that is into the cultural especially in the cultural community. And one of the actual microbiologists who identified the faster that there are 17 faster that are solely also conditions of pathogen. So, that's what I'm doing now. So, let's start with the laboratory that I'm doing all the systematic science now, from the first fellowship in Colombia, have actually shown that the treatment of antibiotics for the mind can actually reduce the activity of the cell in the cytokine and faster as the treatment is on. And such effect will lead to an interaction of the most non-specific response to the pathogen. So, this is what the result of the laboratory that is actually more than treatment. We want to show that in the first line, actually the one single microorganism which researchers all the recommendation totally focused responsibility to the microbiota which is the effect of this pathogen. This actually might also establish the field of many types of pathogens, not only one that uses the strategy of course on primary science and microbiota interaction, but also people. Experiments, for example, which have proven initial control of microbiota and also additional issue in context of microbiota. But I mentioned before, we also mentioned bacteria as members of the microbiota, which remember is not going to have diverse, and especially in context of diverse, when bacteria from finite and like really nice, right, it shows that protocols for natural and protocols in the microbiota can actually themselves promote an interaction in context of cellular activity. This is simple question of microbiota, so it's very the cellular and environmental tissue and science itself is efficient and completely resolved. So what I mind was to find microbes engaged in that response and important thing for the health of the immune system, but we want to remember that this is factors like all microbes can influence and promote the efficient against pathogens. However, the microbiota is not always good in the context of encountering pathogens. They actually used to work like 30 years ago, highlighting the importance of the microbiota in favoring transmission of pathogens and favoring the pathogenic consequences of infection. So for example, work that was done by Richard Wilson years ago shows that ability for the leg one to touch the receptor is depending on the chemical factor of the receptor and not the FDA that allows it to actually infection. Work that was done shows viruses show that viruses are quite on to find the microbiota that is susceptible to highlighting the impact of the microbiota in commercial infection. And one of the work that collaborated done with others highlighting the impact of the microbiota in promoting pathogenic consequences of infection. So then let's discuss that in the next slide. So one of the things that I want to do is highlight the importance of measuring the microbiota activity for the receptor. So all of the microcontrolling systems, they are very tight contact with the material, and this is actually used to separate the protein material and to protect that identity, and this is preventing the management of the microbiota activation. So what actually showed years ago in the context of an acute infection of the receptor, the system is now going to come in, and now the microbiota has tight contact with the material, but highly selective. In addition, we can find microbes that are receptor and regulate formation. And this kind of observation has been proven to show that this work is much more different in the context of the Chinese thing. Because the microbiota activity condition is present and actually is infection. And this is all the work that is always used to rely on the more larger infection system, the microbes in the receptor can respond to the and as a consequence of the change in the relationship with the microbiota, the cells are not change the with the microbiota in the receptor. Because of the interaction with we are actually introducing other expressions with classical microbes. For example, in context of the that, for example, the bacteria in bacterial coli become very dominant and now taking over the entire receptor. And these bacteria are currently of the classical responsible pathogen. So many different methods, organisms promote the pathogen, they not use the pathogen itself, but switch to a direct relationship with the microbiota and the overexpression in the plasma microbiota that has infection. So we can high contact methods for the environment in the receptor, and we can use the pressure. The receptor to maintain the risk of the receptor, which has food and but at the same time, you need to have infection, and can be the consequence of the receptor. So over the last few years, work that was done in laboratory revealed that in the context of an infection, we can transmit the actual relationship with the situation. And in the context of an infection, an animal develops allergy because they have to be treated at the same time as that infection. At the same time, we actually show that the level of infection in context of inflammation indicates more likely to be between pathogen and commensal, and can develop critical response to the commensal, which can of course have also consequences for the receptor. So this actually is entirely between the laboratory between and the computer, it can actually support the some infection reaction push it forward, and actually create technical intermediate via the social relations with the microbiota of the check. So the model that studies to explore such as this question, this model actually is unfortunately linked to the mechanism that is about the human development of type it's not considered to finish infection, but it's supposed to be context, which is the real model behind the training of the pathogen. This actually goes to show in a very surprising manner, is despite the fact that the microbe response to the receptor, it goes to start with the tissue and starts with the level of negative inflow. As you can see, the negative inflow has remained there, and then what happens is inflow after infection. There's a profound not only of the negative inflow, but microbe. So it's clear. So the profound model of the negative inflow, such as the position, is the best associated with the field at attention. In order to this process, the pathogen is formed from the defensive from the infection. So we get and the negative inflow is working. Of course, and then show in a very surprising manner that one cognition of cell is active on the system. So we see that this cognition of cell is evident in the cell that is the active system, because it's absent from the cell. And we see that it's active from the cell activity at the system, and actually doesn't only use one cognition of cell. Collaboration with John Shannon and Magdalene collaboration were able to show that after 10 days, this cognition that is cell was removed from the other episodes, when the other cognition that is cell actually still there. However, what's strange is the fact that in the tissue itself, the cell was present. So the structure to cell has response to antigen from the regulatory manner as manner to remove the class of the cell. And after the cell is 71 have shown that to be important for the initial clearance of the data. The cell also extremely good qualification on activity response to antigen. So these cells are based on the metabolic and hormone behavior that can use chemical response to the activation of the receptor to maintain the equilibrium of the environment and control infection. As I mentioned before, for this infection, when these cells are still there, they can be absent from the structure. So this probably means that the cell will not be able to track context, or that something may happen in the context of the lymphatic system. So these cells have the attract, which is very important for infection context. So visualize this tricky fact. Visualize the lymphatic. As you see, animals with injury cells that allow us to show the lymphatic network to the neural tissues. And this is what happens with infection. This lymphatic network is completely damaged. There is a leakage of the lymphatic and non-lymphatic able to feed tissues within the output compartment. So this infection has the capacity to make an inflamed flow to permanently damage the lymphatic compartment, and this may last again for the life of the animal. This is not just a transient element, it's really a profound moment. This is the adequate tissue of the animal in which the lymphatic are going through. This is what happens at the decision on tissue cells are present. From infection, you can see extremely incredible and what's called a constellation of cells that are present in the tissue, showing the profound anomaly of the environment and high damage response that permanently feed the tissue of the animal. But the other thing is variation was linked to the nature and itself away from the normal trajectory. Instead of coincidentally the distribution and function, we don't because of the gradient within the actual tissue, even without an actual, we can see that now, and find the larger property itself within the physical tissue itself. So we found that the gradient from the normal trajectory and actually found the tissue. So having an introduction of the dialogue between the tissue and the mechanism could have consequences, and it is expected that in the ability of animals constantly actually develop normal response to the attack. And what we're able to show is that these animals are no longer able to develop power together, but they can actually be visualized, but these effective animals develop good actually themselves to the attack, and it's actually evidence that animals do develop good energy out of possession. Importantly, those animals are also not able to develop response to vaccine, and effectively abolish ready to not adaptive responses to vaccine and anti-vaccine responses. So the ability of the CHR to not coherent response to oral antigen is ability to animal for the moment. So for example, macrobiota, as the negative story shows, we're able to show that this long-term resonance that we can actually do, and this long-term management is caused by the action of the macrobiota. And if you eliminate this macrobiota solution of infection, we're eliminating the infection consequence of infection, which restores the ability of the animal to not actually make regulatory responses. So this model actually allows us to this experiment allows us to put the model that some infections have the ability to create a problem in the system. And we can do that by creating damages in the case of anti-network. This anti-network damage will allow sufficient control of the tissue, it could be maintained and create an international loop that creates the normal trajectory, and then shut down all the dialogue between the tissue and the network structure. And this could actually have long-term consequences in control. So we could take, for example, that this means that people need to adapt to actually use the macrobiota, some of them critical to vaccine, we can imagine that maybe one of these critical inflammation responses, and consequently because maybe one of the explanations for the failure of the vaccine is part of the world using infection burden too high. On the other hand, we need to remember that the network between both the approach that we can have to system, and the network infection also taking away and likely to compare relationship with the adaptive. So we need to propose a model in which in some cases the infection is not the problem, but shows the trait of the consequence of infection making an underlying cause for the development of disease, and it will be to the effect of those macros and not result in which kind of infection disease can cause. So our mission from work actually attracts the system of most solutions that actually will focus on. However, to use the region and by the possibility that all the tissue control that is on macrobiota. And as I mentioned before, every single layer surface is going to like on the cross. The skin is a very large surface that is of course a target of many interactive disorders, which is also attached to pathogens, of course, it's possible to develop many tumors. But it's also cool to large number of microbes. And these microbes can be in these structures that have follicles, blood glands, and sebaceous glands, they will fungi, bacteria, and viruses. That really what inspired us to go in this direction was a beautiful single work done by Eusebius DNA together with High that really uncovered remarkable positioning in the composition of the microbiota present in the skin. And surveying the skin of Capricorn, they were able to show that each compartment there are certain with its own community of microbes that was very secreted by the nutrient present in the flesh. And it was not only for bacteria, but also for fungi. Similar work by Don Bachiri and Hydrogen highlighted the importance of these microbes in the context of inflammation state or disease state by showing efficient analysis and including most into experimental data that the class of microbes can actually influence inflammatory disorders and showing also change in the composition of these microbiota in the context of primary infection. And this line of research really has extended to many different groups internationally, highlighting that almost every single inflammatory disorder there is a different kind of microbe that is present in the skin and this ranges from lipids to minerals. So very brief, graduate students years ago joined the lab and with multi-class group which extended the macrobacteria in our skin could be important for the control of the system. And when we researched was to look at animals that were really important aspects of macrobacteria before I jumped line. And what we were able to show that an animal that has no bacteria in the gender on the skin, these animals actually have no capacity to inflammatory cytokines that out of the tumor and gamma happening on the skin. So we were able to do this experiment to prove that the effect is independent of the macrobiota and then the skin is the microbiome important for the control of coordination. So we were able to show that there's a very important cytokine immediately the dialogue between the microbiota and the system with I1 alpha. So I'm going to show you a couple of slides from our work on something I was able to show you an infection system model or infection division by nature. If you infect an animal and the germ condition or an animal that has a bacteria, and she can treat that having just microbiota colonization or not, or antibodies, she was able to show that the germ free mice, and this is very visible, the lesion was way smaller than the NCF mice. So when the mice have bacteria, the lesion inflammation is very high, when the mice have germ free, they have way less inflammation. So again, coming back to the point, in a certain mice of inflammation is actually reduced. But not having inflammation is not always putting this thing for the system. The animal is actually not able to longer actually respond to the problem. If you do response against the particular parasite that you have in the NCF mice, and it's actually very similar to in the skin to see what is produced that's important for control of infection, and if they have any germ free, they're actually not able to do that. And actually respond to pathogen and impact that actually able to control infection. So we have evidence that the skin microbiome is fundamental in controlling local disease. So when we consider actually using different cells and different approaches, the reason the rationale behind it is we very much part of the work actually behind it, very much working more complexes. So using one antibacterial topic type animal to of course more So then we want to understand if we can